Welcome to TimeXtender Tuesdays, and let's get her started. Why don't you take her away, Joseph?
Okay, thanks so much, Jay. All right, so today, I'm excited to talk about implementing a periodic snapshot table. This is a question that I've gotten somewhat frequently. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we might, first of all, need a monthly snapshot table. Periodic snapshot table, rather. So there are a number of different examples that we can kind of cover on what a periodic snapshot table is, but essentially it's made up of summarized or aggregated measurements that occur over a standard period, such as a day, a week, a month. And the grain of the table is going to be that period, right? And not just the individual transactions that we're more familiar with in a transactional fact table. This is going to be more of a period-based fact table. So some examples of this are hourly weather, right? So you can take a measurement of the weather at any given point in time, and that's going to be the transaction. But let's say you measure the weather every second, right? You take measurements of the weather every single second of the temperature, every second, and you load those in. That would just be a simple transactional fact table, right? But when you aggregate that up to the hour and you say, what was the average temperature for that period, that hour, and then you put that down, that's going to be a periodic snapshot table. Now, the other part of this snapshot table is that data is snapshotted. So once you capture that data, the average temperature for that period, it isn't gone back. You don't go back and change that, right? So that's static in time, and you don't typically go back and change it in a snapshot table. Another example is daily visitors. So per day, you have so many visitors, right? You could have, one person entering every couple minutes or every few seconds, right? And that would be more transactional. One person entered at this time, one person entered at this time. However, to aggregate that up for an entire day, that's where you get that periodic snapshot look at the data. Another example is monthly sales totals. So let's say you do have a sales transaction table, but you find that, well, it's not super helpful to view it at that transactional level. I actually want to aggregate up for the month, and I want to see what the sales are for my sales team every month. And that's how we are actually measuring our commissions or our bonuses, for example. And so you can do that and buy a monthly snapshot table. That's going to make it much easier to get an analysis or a view of what the total sales are, and it's going to give you a better picture of that data. So the problem is when data is actually recorded more frequently than is useful. We use that example of the weather being, the temperature being measured every single second. Well, it's not actually useful for most purposes to know what the second by second temperature was. Like, it doesn't matter the temperature 10 seconds ago. I know it's probably hasn't changed much from now, right? And so, but measuring the temperature hour by hour or day by day, now that's going to be important. So by aggregating up, we're actually able to find data that's more useful. So a periodic snapshot table is the solution to that. And it's meant to optimize the granularity of the data to make it more ideal for analysis. Taylor, do you have a question?
Yeah. So I guess what I'm wondering is, when we're doing data analysis, would we still keep this other table? It seems like there'd still be a lot of use cases to keep this most granular data regardless, or what do you think? What do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely cases where you'd want to keep both. You'd have your aggregated snapshot that's for period by period, and then you can still keep your transactional data. By saying that you're implementing a periodic snapshot table, it wouldn't be accurate to make the assumption that we're actually getting rid of all that transactional data. There are oftentimes many cases where you might want to keep that. However, the periodic snapshot table gives you the added bonus, and you'll see that here in this bottom bullet, to save storage costs and processing time. Now, as you'll see in the demo that we're going to do today, we're measuring cryptocurrency prices every minute, right? And to keep those minute by minute cryptocurrency prices over the course of multiple years, that could, blow up my fact table and cause my storage in my data warehouse to be very expensive over time. So it may be that, well, I'm only going to keep the minute by minute transactions for a month, but then after that month, I'm actually going to start deleting those records, right? So yeah, great question. There are definitely cases where you want to keep the transactions, but there's also having that periodic snapshot provides you with additional options by being able to get rid or archive data down the road. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead into the demo and implementing this periodic snapshot table. Now, of course, in order to get through this, you need to have an app server, an ODX server. You need to have a data source available. Today, we're going to be connecting to cryptocurrency prices. We do have an API that we're using. We're happy to share that API with you, and we can put that here in the chat or in the community forums a little bit later, but that's a data source that we're going to be using. I set up a data source last week connecting to cryptocurrency prices API, and this is just, it gives us the exact price of any given cryptocurrency at the time of measurement, right? And we have that running once a minute. So every minute it's pulling the current price, and then I'm going to pull that in. So that's currently in my ODX. So let's jump right in. So the first thing, because that data is already in my ODX, first thing I'm going to need to do is map the data into the data warehouse and ensure my primary keys are aligned properly. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so here I have my operational data exchange. As I mentioned, I have this crypto data source, and this is just a REST connector, REST provider connecting to that cryptocurrency provider that I mentioned, or cryptocurrency API, and it's pulling the current price of these different cryptocurrencies every minute. Now, having this minute by minute price isn't actually very helpful for me. I don't need that minute by minute transactional data. The analysis that I'm doing is actually more efficient, more effective for my business to find the information that we need if we had an hour by hour measurement rather than minute by minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a periodic snapshot table that allows me to have this data hour by hour, averaging out the price from all those different measurements that I have, and then bring that out to Power BI. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me move over here to the data selection pane. I can click on the crypto data source here and search through that. So we have a number of different tables, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and Ethereum. I'm just going to bring in Bitcoin and Dogecoin for now. So we'll bring in Bitcoin. And then I actually want to map Dogecoin right onto the very same table here. So I'm going to have both Bitcoin and Dogecoin mapped into the exact same table. And we'll see from the mappings, we have them both in there. And I'm just going to rename this to my crypto by minute, right? So I have these, this is the transactional level data as often as they're being measured, which is, as I mentioned, is minute by minute. Of course, we need to double check those primary keys to make sure those are correct. And in further analysis of the data, I've seen that the key is a primary key, and then of course there's a symbol, because again I'm mapping these two different symbols together into the same table, so I need both of those to be part of the primary key. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and deploy and execute this table. And I'm going to send that to the execution queue here, so this can run and start loading all this data into the data warehouse while I continue to work. So we'll get that table deployed. The next thing I want to do is I want to add an aggregate table. So as part of this period, we need to define what this period is, right? How often are we going to be, or at what level, what granularity are we going to be aggregating this data? So let's go back here to TimeXtender, move that over to the side, and I can right click on this table, go to advanced, and add an aggregate table. So this is going to allow me to aggregate that data. Here, I'm going to call this crypto prices by hour, or even better phrased, hourly crypto prices. All right, so the first thing to do in the aggregate table is to define the group by. So this is essentially my grain. This is going to define the grain of my data. Now, the first grain is going to be the symbol. Of course, I do want to have a record for each symbol or each type of cryptocurrency that's in this table. The next one is going to be the date. Now, what I want to do in this table is I could just have the date value in there, but I don't, because that date value also includes the time. That's just going to give me the same grain that I already have. I want to aggregate up. I want to aggregate up to the hour. I could just pick the hour. The problem with that is this hour is 1 through 24, right? Or 0 through 23. So what that's going to do is it's going to aggregate every first hour of every day, and I don't want that either. I want year, month, day, and then hour, right? So I'm going to do that. So we'll type in year here, put in year, date, month, day. Let's see the day, and then the date and the hour of that date, right? So that's going to extract the different date parts that are in that date. And then we want to aggregate up. Okay, so we want to aggregate. What do we want to aggregate? We want to aggregate the price. So we can put a few different aggregates in here. We can get the average price. And I'm just going to call this price because it's going to give us the price for that hour. And then I'm going to say here we can do price again, and we can do min price. So by putting a few different aggregation types in here, it's going to give me a little more flexibility down the road. I may or may not use them, but at least I'll have them. So I can do price, min price, and max price. So I'll have all of those in there. So symbol, date, and then we're aggregating up these different prices here. So yeah, and then we also, of course, want the currency in there as well. So I'm going to put the currency in there. We have currency value. So we do want to aggregate because we want that available in the final data set as well. Anything that we want in the final data set has to be listed inside this aggregate table here. So I'll click OK, and that's going to create my aggregate table. Now, this is a very critical piece in this, is when aggregating the data, we want to be sure that we're not aggregating partial data sets, right? By that, I'm saying that what if, our data source is executing every minute? Let's say this table gets executed right now, which means it would only have 15 minutes worth of data that it would be aggregating. And that's not going to be a complete average of the hour of which is currently 9 a.m. Pacific time, right? So it's not going to give us a complete picture. So we want to wait until an hour has completed, that full 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., that full hour is over and done with before we actually take that average. So to do that, we can add a data selection rule here. So I'm going to add a data selection rule, and I actually just have this saved over here, and I'm just going to copy and paste that. Okay, and what we have here is a data selection rule that's essentially concatenating these different date parts of our current date. So it's saying get date, what is the year, month, day, and hour of the current time? And then it's saying I want to make sure that the date that I'm extracting from this table here is less than the current hour of the current day of the current month of the current year. Okay, so it's pulling those all together, and it's saying I just want to be sure that whatever I'm aggregating that hour has already been completed. So it's prior to the current hour that we are currently in. So I'll click OK, added that rule in here. The next thing I want to do is I will have this year, month, day, and hour. that's going to be, while it's nice to have for filtering and for different things in here, I want to just have a date time field that I can use for my reports. So I'm going to add a custom field here, and we're going to call this date time. And this, of course, is going to be a date time field, date and time, and I'll click OK. And then I can add a transformation here. I've already added a SQL snippet for this. And the SQL snippets, if you're not familiar, are a really nice way. You simply go to Tools, Snippets, and you create a snippet. So I've created a snippet already, and it's just a string, a SQL transformation that you have that you can parameterize. So I have this, I already wrote this SQL transformation, saved it as a SQL snippet. It has these different parameters: year, month, day, and hour. And I can just drag and drop these: year, month, day, and hour, and it's going to pull those in there. So this is going to concatenate the year, month, day, and hour specified in these different date parts here, and it's going to cast that as a date time. So that's going to give me my date time field for this periodic snapshot table. So click OK, and now we have that nice date time field for us. All right, so let's jump back to the slides, see what step we're in. So we've created our aggregate table, we've added our data selection rule, we've added a custom field for the date time. Now we want to clone this table and add our table insert. So this aggregate table is going to give us what we have, and it's just going to aggregate up. But we want to make sure that that data never gets deleted. We want to insert that into a table and ensure that that data never gets deleted. And this is going to allow us to go back on our crypto by minute and delete old records to save space if we want to, right? So this is part of the snapshot piece of the periodic snapshot. So to create the snapshot, I'm going to go to right click on the aggregate table, go to advanced, and click on clone table structure. And this again is going to be our periodic, I'm going to name this crypto periodic snapshot, or I can even call it crypto hourly snapshot because we know what our period is. We have our crypto hourly snapshot. Now this has, again, the year, month, day, and hour. I don't necessarily need those broken out because I do have this date time field, and that's what I'm going to be using pretty much exclusively. So I can delete these additional fields, year, month, day, and hour. And so I have my symbol, my currency, my average price, my min price, max price, and date time. Of course, I need to insert the data from here into here. So I go to advanced and add a table insert. I can say insert aggregate crypto. Of course, we want to insert this from our hourly crypto price table into the raw table, and I can auto map. It's going to automatically map all my fields for me. So I'm doing a table insert from my aggregate table into this table. Okay. And to make my evaluation, my analysis of the data a little bit more flexible, I want to create a couple of additional fields here. I want to create a price just for Dogecoin and just for Bitcoin. So I'm going to add a field, call it Dogecoin here. And one more for Bitcoin. Click OK. And I'm going to add a transformation. And I'm going to say this is going to be my price and add a condition where symbol is equal to DOGE. Okay, same for here. And this is going to be my custom value of price only where symbol is equal to Bitcoin, which is BTC. Great. So now I'm pulling only the values of Dogecoin, only the values of Bitcoin into separate fields. This is going to allow for a greater flexibility in Power BI and in my analysis. So I've completed these two different pieces here. Of course, what I can do now is I can bring this into a tabular model. Let's go back to our steps here and make sure we have everything. So we've cloned the table. We added a table insert. We do need to add history. Okay, so that's one piece that we need to add here. So we can right click on this table. Now we have all the fields we want. And we're going to go to table settings, history, and enable history. Of course, we have an incompatible feature here that we need to disable, truncate valid table. We don't want to truncate the valid table because we want to ensure we always keep that historical data. It's the whole reason why we're adding history to this table. It's not necessarily a slowly changing dimension, but it will prevent the data from being erased ever in the future. So we'll click OK. We've added history. We can go to our history settings, and we can say that our primary keys are symbol and let's see, date time. Okay, so we have for every symbol, we have a different date time. That's our primary keys, and everything else is a type 0 field, meaning those things should not change. Okay, so by adding these as type 0 fields, you're saying that you're going to ignore any new data that comes in, because that's part of the snapshot, right? We want to take the current value, we want to insert that, and we want to keep that as a historical value. All right, if new dates come in, we're going to, of course, bring those in as new rows, but we're not going to go back and change our previous values for previous dates. All right, so now we've done these pieces. I'm going to go ahead and deploy and execute this. But before I do that, let's go ahead and add our semantic model. So jumping back to our steps here, we need to add our semantic model. Okay. So I will add a semantic model. We're going to call this crypto for analysis services only in this case. And I can start bringing in my tables. So I have really, it's just my snapshot, right? That's all I want to see in this case. So we can just add all the fields that are going to be relevant. In this case, I'll just bring them all in. Click OK. And we have all my fields. And I want to add an endpoint. We're going to call this crypto. And we'll click OK. So we've added my analysis services endpoint. Now I can deploy and execute all my modified tables and views. Yes, what did I do here? Primary keys. Of course, I need my primary keys set on here. And my date time. Okay. So deploy and execute all of my changes. Again, this is going to generate, of course, all the code necessary to create these tables and perform my periodic snapshot. And then I want to deploy and execute my semantic model. So this is going to create that analysis services tabular model here on my machine. And that's going to generate that model. Now I can go ahead and open up Power BI and connect to that model. So I'll click here, Get Data. And this is going to allow me to connect to my analysis services here on my machine. Click Connect. The server is my PC, and I believe I called this Crypto 3. Connect to that. Good. And we have all the data set that I need here. Let's go ahead and make a bar chart. I'm going to do the axis as the date time. And then my values, I'm going to do Dogecoin and Bitcoin. And we'll be able to see that over time. So for some reason, the Dogecoin isn't coming in properly. Interesting. Not sure why that is.
Why do you say it's not right? Doge has a pretty crazy historical over this business with foreign markets and Musk, of course. There's a lot of manipulation going on in the market. That looks about right to me.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
could be.
Been wasting some money on this.
anyways, now we get to see the analysis of these two different Bitcoins over time. But again, being able to break that down to an hourly time period rather than a minute by minute time period is going to be able to provide me with a more accurate analysis, more relevant granularity than having that deep minute by minute granularity. So that is the demonstration of creating a periodic snapshot table in TimeXtender. Are there any questions that we need to address? No questions, come in
the chat. No.
We have a few minutes here, guys, so please feel free to post some questions in the chat. If you do have any questions on how that was created, we will be putting together a KB article on this process. So we'll have the video and, of course, a guide put together there for you inside of the support site for TimeXtender.
Hey, I just want to point out, Joseph, I just checked Bitcoin's up about $150 since you started this presentation. So the end of your time series there just showed the down part, but you're doing your part to support Bitcoin. So thanks very much for that.
Great. Well, I'm glad I can do my part here.
All right then. If we don't have any questions, we got about a minute to go. Make sure to register if you want to be getting the invites at 24 hours ahead of the presentation in 2 weeks. And if we'll also put up a link to our survey so you can give us feedback about how you like these presentations or suggest other topics. So thanks very much for being with us today.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody.